All right, third time's a charm. This was going so well, but I've tried to make this last eye video twice, and I've been having technical issues. So we're gonna talk about placing and rendering eyes. Because of that process misstep, there are a bit of a shadow of some eyes from previous attempts. But where we should be is just at a moment where we have kind of a shadowy space within Justin Bieber's eye sockets. And we're gonna start from there. All right, so as I said at the previous PowerPoint, the way we place the eyes relates to the tear ducts relate to the position of the nostril. So you can use the nostril shapes that you've already established to help guide the position of the eye within the socket. So if I pull a vertical down from Justin Bieber's edge of his eye socket, I can find that they relate pretty closely to about halfway through the span of the nostril. Height-wise, they are in line with the narrowest point of the nose, which is a height I've already established. Okay, so I could be measuring it as a width off the center line. At this point, I have so much of the face already drawn. I think I can just sort of assess where halfway through the nostril is and sort of guide my position from there. I'm gonna just brighten those lines up just a little. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do is off that tear duct, I'm gonna measure out to the outside corner of the eye. So measuring stick is sitting out at the lateral or outside corner of Justin's right eye. I'm gonna mark the position of his tear duct and then bring it over here. And drop that down. And as I was saying in the PowerPoint earlier, the lateral corner of your eye does relate pretty closely with the limit of the eye socket. He's pretty symmetrical. So I can place those outside edges of the eye and then be looking past to kind of reclaim my structural shape to relate. All right. The next thing that we want to look for is the angle of the eye. On different faces, you're going to notice that some of the outside corners angle up. Other faces, the tear duct can stay higher and the outside corner might droop down just a little bit. Justin Bieber happens to have his outside corner and his tear duct run into about exactly the same line. So that's lucky for me. Instead of citing an angle here, I can just pull a straight horizontal line out and my outside corner and tear duct are gonna fall right on that line. Okay, the next thing that I'm gonna do is, because we carefully already defined the structure of the eye socket using the zygomatic bone, and then also establish the top of the socket using the eyebrows and the limits of the frontal bone. I'm going to do a height measurement on the center of his eye. I'm just going to pick a center line in the socket, do the same. And good old Justin here. And then I'm going to measure, that's typically going to be the most widest, most open part of the eye. So if I measure along that line, let's see what shapes I find. they can be really helpful guideposts. So here I am. I've put the top of the measuring stick at the bottom edge of Justin's eyebrow, right kind of in the center of the eye. The first line I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tick mark that relates to the bottom of the socket. We can see it as that transition point from the dark bottom edge of the socket to the brightening plane of the front of the cheek. I'm going to grab the lower lash line. I'm going to grab the upper lash line in the center, and then I'm also going to grab that fold of the eyelid. So 4 little marks. I'm going to bring it over here. This time, top of my measuring sticks at the bottom of the eyebrow. My lower line is still relating to that dark plane that I created for the bottom of the socket. So I'm going to make a tick mark for lower lash line, upper lash line, upper eyelid. Okay. Check those measurements on your other eye. One could be squinty. I'm at the bottom of his brow at the center. I got bottom of the sockets aligning properly. Justin's quite symmetric in this pose. Lower lash line, upper lash line, lid line also relating. Adjust if you need to. And place it on my drawing. Same thing. Make some tick marks that relate. Okay, keep my pencil really sharp for you all since things have gotten a little busy. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start connecting my position. So I have my inside of my tear duct. So I'll do that one first. So I'll follow the upper lash line from tear duct to center on each side. You can kind of check for symmetry, also check for what I see. All right, now I'll go ahead and I'll bring them down to the outside corner. Observing the angle closely. It may not move in exactly the same way as it did rising up. Okay, that looks about right. Now I'm going to go from outside corner to the center of the lower lash line. Still liking it. You can fill out your, kind of broaden your line to suggest the fullest part of those upper eyelashes. Sometimes that helps with quick recognition, so you can put that in sooner rather than later. All right, and lastly, I'm going to watch that angle up back to the tear duct, which I might just give a little bit of observation and rendering just to help me recognize that shape. But just with a series of arcs that I had set some guideposts for, you can see I have 2 eyes that are relating pretty symmetrically, and I think also, although they're pretty simple forms, are relating well to what I'm seeing of Justin's eye shape. I have 2 more tick marks. Those are going to be the upper eyelids. Observation for where they narrow and widen, but I'm going to refine those too, or at least suggest them. Okay, all right, next, what I'm gonna do, I just add a little value in there. Now I'm gonna observe how much of the iris that I see and place that in the eye. My center line will sort of help with that, although your subject could be looking in a different direction. So it may not balance right across that center. And I'm just going to mask in a little bit of value. Okay. We know irises and pupils are round, but quite often you're not seeing that shape fully. You might be just seeing part of it. So make sure observing that shape. Look at the amount of contrast between the pupil and the iris. Can you really see that delineation clearly? Or will it work better just to sort of softly model a little bit of using contrast to sort of softly suggest that delineation, and then also working reductively and kind of working around to suggest some highlights or reflection in the space of the eye. Now the other thing, I haven't pulled any light into those eyes yet. Yes, that's white, but kind of like the teeth, they're set in certain places more deeply in the face. And so it might behoove you not to make them as white as you expect or even really see. You might brighten the whites of the eyes a little bit to a lighter gray, but if they get too bright, they feel like they will start moving in front of the bright planes of the nose, and the eyes will end up just looking buggy or sort of tacked on, not as much a part of the face. All right. From there, I've established my eye shape, I think, relatively accurately. So now I'm just going to start moving out, looking for value shifts. Things that help making the structure of his eye socket and shape of his planes of his cheeks more specific to him. As I add value, I'm going to also be looking at whether that means adjusting adjacent value. I'm going to adjust shapes. So yeah, at this point, I'm going to putz with the eyes a little. They are hard. They are important. They help us recognize the portrait, like and the emotions in the portrait, the way we recognize human emotion. And if we do that right, it'll allow the viewer to have this kind of human familiarity with the subject. They'll approach the portrait and start feeling like they know the person, which is quite often our aim when portrait drawing. So I will probably be putzing with these eyes both on and off camera, lightening things, tweaking things. But hopefully these tips I've given you allow you to get to the point where you can putz and nuance those eyes faster and more reliably, and if I'm lucky, get you to avoid the majority of the frustration that usually comes with drawing eyes. See a little bit more brightness than I have just below eye. I pull a little bit more light to the upper lid. Actually, maybe the lower one too. Okay, not perfect. But not bad.